you, where do you see the conflagration between Israel and Hamas going in the next 48 hours when the truce is over?
I can see a lot of pressure on Israel to extend the truce coming from Biden, who's terrified of his dwindling political fortunes at home. His base is collapsing over his warm physical embrace of Netanyahu and the massive amount of military aid, including bunker buster bombs he's delivering to support Israel's exterminationist rampage throughout Gaza. There's pressure coming down on the Israelis from within the talks in Qatar, which are taking place right now. Right. And you'll notice that Tony Blinken's not there. It's Bill Burns, the CIA director. He's really running the show here. Right. And David Barnea, the Mossad chief, is there as well. And they have Hamas on the line. They're talking about releasing more captives. And the question is, when does it reach a point where the rest of the captives become superfluous? And at what point does Netanyahu and his security chiefs, who are responsible for this entire disaster of October 7th on so many levels, and who are being held responsible by the Israeli public, when do they have to go back to war? Because they cannot afford to have this war end without satisfying their maximalist terms of regime change in Gaza, of months and months of warfare, completely changing the regional calculus and restoring what they call deterrence. When does that take place? I don't think it's the next 48 hours, but I think there's enormous pressure internally in Israel for that to take place.
Do you think that the regional actors, from President Erdogan to President Al-Sisi to the King of Jordan, will allow the type of extermination that Prime Minister Netanyahu had begun to continue?
Well, Erdogan has used a lot of tough, flamboyant rhetoric. He has, within his AKP base, guys who are actually trying to go to the Syrian border and basically hitch a ride to fight Israel. I mean, he has to satisfy a base that's completely whipped up, and he's doing nothing about it. He's allowing oil and gas to transit through Azerbaijan to Israel. A lot of the fuel that Israel is relying on for its war effort is coming through Turkey. So he's done nothing. What Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has done has been very interesting, because here's someone who came into power basically exterminating the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, the first elected government in 5,000 years, which had started to allow things to open up with respect to the Gaza Strip. They're much more sympathetic to Hamas. He has the elected president basically killed in prison. So you would think that he would also agree with Israel's goal of eradicating Hamas. But the one thing he can't allow to have happen is a humanitarian catastrophe that pushes millions of people into the Sinai desert who are desperate refugees in a state that has 80 million people who are already largely, many living below the poverty line. Sisi has said, we will sacrifice millions of lives to prevent our country from being flooded with refugees. So he has blocked what the Biden administration initially called for, which was a, quote, civilian corridor to Egypt, which was crazy, because what it meant was Biden and his people were signing on to the Israeli policy of ethnically cleansing the Gaza Strip, which is a goal supported by many Israelis that would be a continuation of the policy that created the Gaza Strip as a walled-in human warehouse that is engaged in armed resistance to end this endless siege and cavalry that Palestinians have experienced.